Hey guys, and thanks for checking back in. In my previous video, I did a routine with the Traktor Control F1, and it was basically an acapella mashup, and I had a lot of people asking me what effect I used on the acapella, and I kept telling everyone I used the Autobouncer in advanced mode, and I had a lot of people explain to me that they had a lot of problems using the Autobouncer. So that kind of sparked an idea for a video series on sort of demystifying Traktor's effects. I think one of the more powerful things about Traktor that it has over some of the other DJ softwares is the amount of built-in effects that you have, and how you can really create your own custom sound in Traktor using these effects. Now, the downside of that is that a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of each effect. For the Autobouncer, for example, was one that was very difficult to grasp the concept, but once you understand what each one of the parameters do and you figure out what parameters work, it actually works really great. For acapellas, it works great right before a breakdown when you activate it and then you slam it off right before the drop. It creates a nice rise and then a nice cutoff. So let's go ahead and get into what each of the parameters do, and I'll explain to you how to MIDI map my preferred parameter settings for it that create that really nice rise and drop. So first and foremost, the Autobouncer in advanced mode is probably the more powerful way to use it because you get an extreme amount of control over how it's going to sound. And basically what the Autobouncer does is it captures an 8-beat sample, and it creates this granular sampling synthesis over it, and it affects the transpose here on the first parameter, the bend of that transpose, and then it mixes all that up with a specific pattern where all of these grains sort of bounce off in a particular manner. So it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. One of the things about the Autobouncer that is a little hard to comprehend is when it's turned on and you activate it by clicking it or by using your controller, it's gonna activate, and then if you turn it off, say one count into when you activate it, it's gonna keep going. Now the reason for that is because the Autobouncer works on a buffer system, so it's going to keep going for, again, that 8 counts just because of the sampling and granular type of effect that it is. So one of the ways to avoid that, if you don't want to do that, is when you turn it off, when we MIDI map our controller, you can MIDI map it so that it cuts it off from the deck over here in the mixer section, and that's going to cut it off no matter if it's turned on. So that's just a very quick tip on how to get a little bit more control over it. So let's go ahead and jump into our MIDI window. I'm going to be mapping it to the Traktor Control F1. And if you saw in the video, I used 2 faders. One was to activate the effect, and the other one was to control the parameters. Again, you can map this first portion of it to a button. I'm pretty sure most of you would prefer a button, but I, by just gestural performance and preference, prefer to have it with the 2 faders. It's just a different way of activating it, so just use whatever method you prefer. So what you want to do is you want to map the effect unit to turn on, and you can get that control here in the effect unit 1 on, and you want to set that to hold, and I have it set to invert just because I'm using a fader. Secondly, you want to add a dry wet, and you want to set that dry wet to 100%. Then you want to add your parameters. And your first parameter, and it's the one that I highly recommend, is set it all the way to 100. The second parameter, which is the bend, you set to 500, which is right in the middle. And the third parameter is the pattern on which those grains are going to be bouncing around, is set to 200. And then of course you want to set it so that effect unit turns on in the mixer, and then it turns off when you bring that fader up or you release that button. That isn't necessary, but again, it's the only way to cut off the Autobouncer at any time that you want to cut it off before it runs out of its 8 counts. So for your second fader knob or button that you want to use to control the parameters, basically there's just two things you need to map, and that's the transpose and the bend. For the transpose, you want to just go ahead and map it to a fader or knob, and you don't have to set any special parameters. And for the bend, you want to go ahead and do the exact same thing. So that's pretty much how you map it. Let me go ahead and show you what that sounds like over a beat. Cool, so you were able to hear how it creates that nice kind of transpose stretch, and then it brings it down, and then once you release it and you turn it off, it sounds really great right before the first count of the next phrase. So that's pretty much it. The Autobouncer, again, it's a buffer effect, so it's a little tricky to comprehend, but once you find the preferred parameters for it and use it in advanced mode, and you activate it at the right time, it can be a subtle effect that adds a lot of life to your mixing and is great for transitions. Again, it's great for acapellas. And again, mapping it to two faders is a little different to how you're probably used to mapping it to a button, but gesturally, I think it feels really great to map it to two faders. There are a couple other mappings you can do to it. You can have it set all the other effects units to turn off when you activate it, just as a failsafe. But basically, I wanted to show you my preferred parameters, which are 100, 500, and the 200. And basically, that sets it up to create that nice rise. And then with the parameter modulation, you go ahead and you just set that so it brings a transpose and the bend down, which creates that nice drop. So that's it. That's the Autobouncer explained. I'll be releasing more videos on in-depth analysis of some of the Traktor effects and how you can use them to better your mixing and your transitions and help you go ahead and use them properly.